Hey, welcome back to another podcast. So, I just want to let you guys know how my day has been. I know you probably don't care, and that's okay. I don't care either. So, I took my buddies out to a Dodgers game today, and it's really interesting. I had the good fortune of being gifted these tickets. They're like blue seat tickets. So, I've never been to the front of, basically the rows where you sit right behind the net, you're right behind the dugout. Basically, in short, it was a fantastic opportunity, and I never received such fabulous service as I did. You had people walking to us about I actually timed them about every 6.5 to 7 minutes, revolving like, hey, do you need anything? Can I get you food? Can I get you water? It's funny when you get like the little wristband and you can go in the little clubhouse area to go eat and stuff. You can actually bring food down with you. So, my mentality is try not to bother the people who work there as much as you can because they're already working extremely hard, right? And you're at a Dodgers game, it's already warm outside, people are hot, they're sweaty, they're working hard, they're not getting paid the most amount of money for this. And to me, let me try to make your job just a little bit easier. So, of course, my buddies and I, who I invited, we all went down there, had a fabulous time. But most of the time, we just sat inside the clubhouse eating, because, I feel like the way that the Dodger Stadium jacks up the prices, like the percentage gain is absolutely just ridiculous to me. It's astronomical. I never would have thought that I would actually, even fathom the idea of an $18 beer, and I think it's only like 12 ounces, something like that, for a beer. We're talking just a simple draft. You could buy a lot of beer for $18 if you went to the store, but because of inconvenience of being at a baseball game, because they got you, can't sneak in alcohol. If you do, you get caught. Obviously, you get kicked out. But nonetheless, it was a fantastic day. Saw myself on the jumbotron. Not really a baseball guy, but it was enjoyable nonetheless. Now, little update. I've been excelling more than I have realized recently. And I feel like what I really want to touch on is that the people that you hang around with are clearly the birds that flock, like the bird's feathers that, stick to you. Now, I don't want to sound like, philosophical here, but that's probably one of the oldest sayings that I've heard. The birds you hang around with, their feathers stick to you. And people have told me that this saying of mine is dumb. And a lot of people who, if you say like a saying like that to people who can't really think too much, they just go, wow, that's a really cool saying. But diving deeper, it's fairly simple to understand. That is basically the people you hang around with, they rub off on you. So if you hang around, like shitheads and, people who are just incompetent and just have no desire to excel in life, to grow, to be better, you're probably going to end off, hanging around them to the point where they rub off on you and you gain that mentality of like, yeah, you know what, like let's drink, every other night, let's hang out, let's just watch a movie, or, just do degenerate things. And the reason being is like, I myself enjoy going out there to learn more, and I try to surround myself with people who are constantly trying to be better. I'm not saying they're workaholics. I'm not saying they're obsessed. And I feel like obsessed as a word is very commonly confused with passion. Because a lot of people mistake passion and obsession for like, two completely different things. But I feel like they're pretty much the same exact thing. What I call, passion to myself, and I put a lot of effort and strain on my body to like accomplish, a lot of people would call that obsession. Because as a singular person, myself, putting so much effort into one specific thing, people would say, oh, he's obsessed with that. He cannot get his mind off of it. But if you told people like, oh, I'm just really like, excited to be doing this certain thing, and it just comes off on, it's really good visual to people, like people look at that and go, wow, that kid is passionate. Like he's passionate in reading books. He's passionate in talking on the phone to customers. He's passionate in going into work. But if you say like this kid's there 2 hours before work starts, he's hammering out emails, he's so tunnel vision, he doesn't talk to a lot of people, he's always focused on his work, he's obsessed. Because the moment it becomes like a negative connotation in people's eyes, and especially when you make them look bad, especially if people you might work with, they might call that obsession because they're trying to push you down because you're making them look bad, which is understandable. I'm not saying you're better than they are or I would be better than they are. It's simply just you're passionate about something that you hold a lot of, keyword here, pride in. And basically, that's why I surround myself with a lot of people who are very passionate in what they do. And if you are having a lot of trouble trying to find people that you enjoy hanging around with, I'll give you one clear piece of advice. And I don't ever like to give advice to people because I don't feel like I'm in ever any position to tell anybody what to do because frankly, I don't like being told what to do. So having that idea, I don't like to tell other people what to do. But if someone is looking for a piece of advice, or even I'll phrase it a different way. If you're looking for a recommendation, hang around a group of people that you are acquainted with, and log mentally or actually like maybe in a journal over the course of 1 to 3 months if you've ever had multiple bad moments with this person, like, oh yeah, they drink way too much and we had an issue, or so this, or you just have like falling outs, or you guys butt heads all the time. They're probably not good for you. Now, I butt heads with a lot of people that I generally being around. It's not in a negative way. It's the way that we confront each other, like intellectually. Like, we'll challenge each other when it comes to like certain topics of like education, whether it's like science or, stocks and finance. Like, we'll butt heads, but it's in a very debative manner to where it's a healthy debate. We're not doing it out of malice. We're not doing it because we hate each other. We're doing it because we're testing each other's abilities on how much we know on each topic. And in the end, we always have like a very healthy outcome. We always come to like a resolution. It's almost like people you see in MMA. Whenever they fight, these guys are bleeding in the end. Their eyes all puffed up. They can only see out of one eye. And all of a sudden, you see them go up to each other. They gave each other a hug, and they shake each other's hand. Like, they didn't just try to kill each other. And now they're shaking hands. Like, that's just a camaraderie. So in that sense, I would say surround yourself with people who, that you don't have pretty much like bad moments with. Now, if you do have like, I would say debative moments or moments where you guys butt heads, look at it as, is this a healthy type of debate? Is it just like something where we're trying to like help each other grow, or we're trying to become better as people? We're trying to learn more, educate each other more. If that's the case, then that's a good thing. If you're just like a, negative person that, to be around, or you're hanging around a negative person who you literally cannot go out with a group without hearing that person say like, woe is me, my life sucks, my job sucks, my girlfriend hates me, or I can't get a girlfriend or whatnot, that negative energy is literally going to translate to your own well-being, and it'll eventually stick to you, and then you'll eventually just start to affect you in that sort of connotation, and it's not healthy. You need to get around that sort of thing. And I gave myself this test. I might have spoken about this months ago, but I told my buddy about this, and this guy, he's never been to college, and he's read more books than anyone that, like, literally in my age group. He's read more books than anybody, and he retains a lot of information basically because he takes his time with these books, because every time he gets to a certain topic or a certain idea, he tries to implement that into like his business. If he doesn't, he goes to someone who might understand what that book is trying to convey, and then he basically goes from there. But he takes his time with these books. This guy's literally read hundreds of books, and he will literally quote books, and it baffles my mind because I have a pretty hard time quoting books. I think anyone would, unless you have like a photographic memory, or unless you've read that book and written down a quote and the page number and the author, and you repeat it like 1,000 times a day, then that's one thing. But this guy has literally like implemented ideas from books into like basically from what he's read into his business. And him and I have never had a bad moment, and I can confidently say that because him and I always, throw each other like, educational topics or whatnot, things like how to be better mentally, physically, maybe spiritually. I think that's a little bit off to a different topic. But a lot of people might disagree, might become a little bit, I won't say ignorant, but maybe stubborn to the idea that if someone's trying to show you, a new topic or a piece of education, people usually shy away from that. And I feel like one of the reasons is that the way that we were coddled in the educational system, like the school system, is that, a lot of people do not like to be told what to do, as I mentioned before with myself. But when someone tries to tell you something new, a lot of people I've noticed are very resistant because their whole entire, school, career, whatever, they were told what to do, and that's their idea and their mind frame. Whenever they're told what to do, they think like, oh, like my teacher used to tell me what to do, my parents used to tell me what to do, blah 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 blah, and they become very negative and resistant. I'm very open-minded to new information if someone has actually something important or some substance to talk about that's worth my time. Like I literally had a buddy of mine, talk to me for over an hour on how to reset what they call your circadian clock and how, Earth's magnetic poles or some bullshit like that basically aligns with the electrons in your body. And this guy was citing websites, studies, books, and I was baffled. I'm like, how do you do this? And I'm a very avid reader myself. I go through about a book a week because I read extremely fast. I take notes and then I memorize those notes. After like business related books, I try to like remember those strategies and try to implement them when I can. Not all the time, because a lot of times these books that implement these strategies are in like higher up positions. But if you're in like a lot of social settings, most of the time you can implement what these books talk about in social settings with friends. It doesn't just have to be in a workplace. That'll have to be a completely different podcast. But it's really interesting when you can talk to someone who can actually challenge you, in an educational manner, especially if it's at a party. Now keep in mind, I don't drink. So, it's easy to actually listen to people at a party when they, either try to bullshit you or whatnot. And because I don't drink, I already know, like, for the most part, if someone's trying to BS me, and after trying to, regurgitate something from a book, which I've remembered from a few books that people in the past at parties have tried to regurgitate to sound extremely smart to me. And I basically remember like, oh, you must have read this book. And they're like, oh, you have read that book. And I can tell these types of people don't actually implement what these books are trying to convey, what they're trying to teach us and help us implement. They're just trying to regurgitate text from a book to sound extremely smart. Especially when you start throwing out a couple of buzzwords and you phrase it or tone it very properly, a lot of people just succumb to the idea of, oh, I'll give you my attention because you're throwing buzzwords out that I don't really understand, so you must sound extremely smart. Well, that's not really the case, because sometimes a lot of people throw out those buzzwords are sometimes not the smartest people. And I've like debunked a lot of what these people have said at parties because I fact check them for the most part, and they don't really like that. But I try to remain as vigilant, as patient as I can, and courteous and whatnot, especially if it's not my house that I'm at. It's at a friend's house, and that person is a friend of a friend. And I've noticed it in the past with people I've taken classes with back in college. People who, like to sit in usually the middle or the back of the room, and they stay quiet and they observe. And then they basically strategize like a very good piece of like, I don't know, statement of what they're going to say when a professor asks for like someone's point of view, and they're like, oh, I find it really interesting how blah 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 strategize this and blah 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 blah, and the professor's just sitting there like, I don't know what you're saying because you threw about 10 different buzzwords in that statement that made no absolute sense. You probably used them in the wrong order, or you used the wrong phrase or whatever. And then they just try to sound really smart. And people just honestly look at him and go, I'm just really confused at what you just said. And then I might come in and say something very simple like, yeah, I think he conveyed this and this in a very good manner, blah, 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 from the book that we read. And everyone goes, okay, that's exactly what I took from the book too. Sometimes you have to understand that even though you're in a setting with people, it doesn't mean that if you throw more buzzwords out there, they'll automatically accept what you're trying to say. Because if they don't understand it, they might be a little bit resistant to the idea of knowing how to trust you, or even if they can trust you. Because you might think you're on a whole different level, but to them, they might just be really confused, or they might thinking this guy's trying to bullshit the whole entire class. Don't be that guy. So going back to the main point here, people who rub off on you, or the flock of feathers that stick to you, it's very important. And I did this experiment. I don't even want to call it experiment. I want to try to be as nice as I can about this. But frankly speaking, when I graduated college, I thought to myself, you know, how many people 10 years from now are you probably going to keep in contact from college? And when I looked at my social media, let's just say Instagram, which I don't use a whole lot anymore, and I have someone essentially running it part time for me, and it's just a good buddy who's really into like that social media marketing and stuff. And basically, he just kind of like knows what to say or knows what to post. I just send him photos or whatnot, and then sometimes I'll just go on there myself and look at it. But I realize if you spend too much time on Instagram watching, you're not creating. So that creative aspect really starts to disappear, but you don't want to succumb to scrolling, a whole lot of Instagram. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. It can be a very creative tool, or it can be a very much like soul-sucking tool, because it sucks your time and it kills you. And that's what social media is designed for, to attract the viewer and to create more engagement on posts. So when COVID started, obviously that was a very interesting time. And I read this quote, the birds and their feathers, whatever, flock, stick to you, whatnot. I thought to myself, you can be that guy with 1,000, they might think that they're your friends, but in reality, they're just maybe even acquaintances, people that you might have said hi to in the cafe or, that rec center at one time in college. And other than that, you don't really know anything about the guy. It was like that guy you see at a party, like every single time, like, hey, what's up, bro? Type of thing. You do a little fist bump or whatever, like, hey, what's up? Let's share a beer. And keep in mind, there's not many people. If you know me, I really like to smoke cigars, not just because of a nicotine rush, not because I think it makes me feel cool, but because I think there's an interesting culture that aligns with cigar smoking that is highly respectable. And I know cigars aren't the most, healthy, I would say, substance to put in your body, but I would say it's a lot more respectable than vaping. I don't know why people even vape. It's the weirdest thing. I think it's like a young trend, but most people of all ages vape. Cigarettes are definitely out of the equation. Haven't touched a cigarette ever. I don't smoke drugs, so that's all the equation. The only thing I smoke would be a cigar once in a while, and that's a fact. I don't smoke anything else other than a cigar, and I don't drink, so my life is very simple. But I ran this test post-college, and I thought to myself, like, okay, if you're following like 900 plus people on Instagram, right? And, how many people can you confidently say like, oh, you know what? I'm a good friend of this person. I can vouch for them. They have good character. And I thought to myself, okay, let me divide it up into three groups. The three groups of people that usually follow on Instagram: the girls, the guys, and then the pages that you follow. The pages being like business pages or, large, big figures like celebrities, or other types of pages like sports related, health related, travel related. So there's three types of pages. Those large pages that I follow, that's not really a concern, because they just post content that's generalized for all people in that specific niche. Like, oh, traveling. You just see posts like of people in like Brazil or Hawaii or Bora Bora. That's not really something that I really care to like unfollow, because I think it's interesting to see the world outside of where I live in California. And then you divide the other two groups of girls and guys. And when you look at like the guys, you go, okay, my questions that I like to ask are, how do you know this guy? Most of the time it's from college, or it's a third, I met through, a friend of mine from college, so a third party. And you think to yourself, okay, how long have I known this guy for? Where did I meet him? Was it through mutual friend, or was it through college? On a scale of 1 to 10, how do I really like this guy? Now, a lot of people don't think this intensely when they look into, how well they think they're acquainted with someone. They might just, I don't really like this guy's content, unfollow. I like to give people benefit of the doubt that the content they post is something that they're generally hoping that people will enjoy, because sometimes the only thing people cling on is hope. So you can't bash people for, clinging on to something that might be their only alternative to people liking them. So I'll give people benefit of the doubt for, that type of effort, if you may call it that. And look at these guys, like I mentioned before, how long have you known them for? How respectable do you think they are? And of course, all of us in college were clowns. You have a few people who had it together. I won't lie, I did not have it together in college. I graduated though in 4 years, so that's the only thing that matters to me. Business degree, big to do, right? But another thing too, if you invited this guy into your home, would they be respectable around your parents? And if you had a girlfriend, would you want to introduce them to your girlfriend and feel comfortable around that? And I knew from right there and then, wow, this is this is a very good indication of who to like basically keep in contact with and who not to. So of course, like large majority of guys, just vanish from the list. And when I started telling this to other friends of mine who were looking to grow as people, I said, this is like what I do. A lot of my friends actually, which I align myself with in like my little circle, they actually started implementing that strategy too. Because like, wow, that's actually really cool. Because the most common thing to do when you unfollow someone is, I don't like the person, or they have different political viewpoints in mind, which I don't really care about people's viewpoints as long as you don't shove it down my throat. As long as I see cool content or content that you find enjoyable and I like you as a person, I respect you, we're good. There's politics, I don't believe, can really divide people unless they want to intentionally divide it among us, if that makes sense. So dividing up into guys and girls, I realized, wow, a lot of these guys from college just simply have never grown up. And I mean, this isn't even an idea of like getting backlash. It's true that a lot of people just don't grow up from college, and then they'll go up into like their mid-20s and then into their 30s, and they'll be doing the same exact things because they'll be living that same delusional mentality of living in college, of drinking every night and going out with their friends and like giving each other inspirational sayings and buzzwords like, oh, I'm about to level up, or I'm about to hit that the only way is up, or something like that, or big moves type of thing. And in reality, they're working a dead-end job. They don't really know what they're doing with their lives. They're still fairly young, but they're confused and they're maybe angry at the world. I think at some point in time, all of us were angry at the world to a certain degree because we are not where we want to be. And for some reason, that somehow rubs off on the whole world because we need someone to take that out on, but unintentionally. Like if you have a bad day, you can tell it rubs off on other people and then they get mad at you. So that's why the term, leave it at the door very much comes in handy, especially in a workplace, especially at home. Got to leave it at the door. So after doing this, I basically cut off a lot of people and I realized like, wow, these guys are not good for me. I don't care how smart you are. You can have a master's degree, a PhD, bachelor's degree, associate's degree. I don't care. But if I don't find you respectable, or, I don't respect you as a person because you're one of those guys who likes to gaslight people, you like to lie to people, manipulate people, or you like to think that you're the smartest guy in the room, you clearly have an issue that a lot of people don't see. And you're having that issue because you're having to socially validate yourself in front of a whole audience of people. And that is why I surround myself with people who don't care about that, because they are on their own mission to where they're grinding by themselves, or they have a supportive group of friends. And if they're really keyed in, locked in, they call them brothers. That term is also very loosely thrown around nowadays. A lot of people call me brother, and I don't really care to say it back because in certain cases, that term is just very loosely said. And surrounding yourself with like a group of people, I would say maybe 5 to 6 guys max, that are all very driven, disciplined individuals. I'm not saying you guys all have to be like military or, first responders or like that type of thing, or wake up at 4:30 every morning, but people who are hard workers or visionaries. They think, I want to do better in the world. I want to grow as a person. Whoever is around me that I respect, I want to help them grow too, and I'm not looking for anything in return. I'm just looking for support. And I'm actually proud to say that I've found quite a few guys who fit that description, and they have been there for me. I have been there for them. And these are guys who like won't just hit you and be like, oh, like I need money, I'm in a jam, blah, blah. Now, if that were the case, and I do consider you like one of my guys at the round table, yeah, I'll send you money, because I know those people would have sent me money in a heartbeat. But the amount of money, obviously, that is a whole different situation, how much they're looking for. So that is how I split up the guys, and you could probably tell that, prior to COVID, I was basically a coddled, individual from that education system where I was very like naive, very like, immature. And then once I realized this is the real world, this is how we grow up. And the easiest thing to do is to surround yourself with people who are like 10, 15, 20 years ahead of where you are. And once you hang around them, they rub off on you extremely fast. And then you will see yourself start to grow. But if you hang out with the same people from college who you all took the same exact classes, nothing is going to change unless you start growing with them as fast as possible, because they know how to grow up, or they know what to do in a sense, because they're learning extremely fast from people who they're hanging around with who have more experience than they do or you do. Then that's clearly an exception. But then I realized, post college mentality, this and that. You hang around people who have more experience than you, and you gain more insight, and you just listen. You close your mouth and you open up both ears and your eyes. You listen and you learn. And I realized, like, wow, I'm starting to learn a lot that I never learned in college. And I think I learned more in real life from people who have more experience than I do than from the actual classroom. Because now I'm actually willing to open up my ears and to listen, and it's not really costing me anything other than my time. Whereas in the past, I was actually disappointed because, I'm paying for something I'm trying to learn, and it just seemed like nothing I could really apply in the actual job environment or the actual real world. Because a lot of people are very confused as to where to go after college. They don't really know. They think just get a job, put your head down, and then just grind away, and then just hope you can retire by the time you're 65. That's not my goal. My goal is to retire a lot sooner, but to keep helping people grow and learn, because I feel like every generation that comes after us has to do better than the one prior. Like, my obligation is to do better than my parents did. And then in the future, my kids, their obligation will be to do better than myself. And I already know that I'll be successful because I have the driven mentality and the discipline to. And depending on where I am in the next 5, 10, 15 years, if my kids are doing better than me, then I'm going to be very impressed, because I already know right now I'm performing quite well. I could be doing a lot better. This isn't something where like every single day I'm a winner. A lot of days are red days, a lot of days are green days. And that's why I coined the phrase, obviously not the first one to say it, but enough red days to appreciate the green ones. Because I feel like the hardest times that I've gone through, the red days, have made me a better person when the green days happen. And when those green days happen, basically I'm flying, because I already know what to expect and everything's just flowing smoothly. There's no hiccups, there's no bumps in the road. So we divided out the guys, right, from the social media. And then I divided out the girls, and it was a fairly simple task. And this might sound a little bit petty, but after speaking to a few good friends of mine who are all girls, these girls said, like, I actually think that's a great idea. And they started implementing that as well, because sometimes you need a little bit of insight and, actual, track record of doing something for people to be convinced. Like, they need to know it works because you've done it yourself. So I told these girls, I started cutting out girls from my profile who just post like the most dumb content. Now, people might call my content dumb, like going out to shoot guns or reading books or going out type of thing, or grinding away and reading. I don't know. They might call that weird. Well, it's weird because you've never done that before. You've never picked up a book. You've never went to the shooting range and shot, in a safe manner or that sort of fashion. You don't really read or do things that other people do. Most people just watch movies all day. Most people go out with their friends and spend money they don't have, and they put it on their credit card. So I look at these girls and go, okay, you're posting all like luxurious posts, but I know you as a person because I went to school with you. You're not making that kind of money. So I already know right away you're probably living off of someone else's wallet. Someone's probably giving you money. And is that a bad thing? No. I mean, if they're willing to give you money to support your happiness or your habit, go for it. It's their choice. I'm not going to judge you differently. But I see these people are still unemployed, and they're not willing to work, or all they do is just hang out with their friends, spend money, rely on whoever's wallet. And to me, they have no aspiration to really grow as a person, and they're just struggling, and they're living this delusional mentality of, I have to post this to get social validity or validation from my social media to make me feel better, and people are DMing me, blah, 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 and it gives me more attention. I'm happy. I think compliments in real life are magnified by 100 compared to someone writing it on social media. When you shake someone's hand and go, I like your suit, or I like the way you do work or business, that is better than someone messaging you, hey, like, you're really good at what you do. A text message is just, it's not very emotional, but when you shake someone's hand, you look them in the eye, that is very emotional. They're going to remember that, especially if you shake their hand the right way and you don't accidentally step on their shoes when you get too close. I've done that a few times and it is absolutely embarrassing. I'm not afraid to say it, but that's why I kind of like angle myself like on a wider stance, because I think it just takes a couple of times when you shake hands of what not to do with foot placement. And that's something a lot of other people might want to take into consideration when they meet people, foot placement. It happens a lot, actually. People accidentally step on your shoes because they get way too close. So basically it divided up guys and the girls in those business pages or whatever, those niche pages as you want to call it. And I started unfollowing these people. Like, okay, this person is clearly not good for me. They're clearly like not growing up. And sometimes you got to give people benefit of the doubt. You got to give them time to learn and grow. And that might take like a year or two. Well, it's been, let's just say 3+ years, and they're still doing the same exact thing. And I am in no position to tell these people what to do. I'm not their parents, and they're grown adults. So me not even saying a word, I'm out. Like a kite just being let go, or a balloon. And instantly, I started seeing a total loss of engagement, because you realize the more you grow as a person, the more you excel, the higher you go. Not saying you're better than they are, but the higher you go and the more you excel, you start to lose a lot of friends, because they want to stick at that same level in the pyramid. They don't want to move up. They're complacent where they are, right? They're comfortable. Their mind is at ease. They're on autopilot, living every day just walking in a straight line and then walking back. Straight line back. I'm the guy who wants to climb the hill and push the rock at the same time. And I'm willing to do that because I want to grow and I want to struggle. And that's why I'm a believer that as human beings, the only reason or way we can really grow mentally or physically is by stress and moving. You don't grow muscles unless you go to the gym and lift weights. You don't strengthen your brain muscles unless you read a book or do critical thinking problems, right? Or you don't strengthen your vocal cords or your articulation unless you speak fluently constantly. I remember one time when I stopped my speaking drills. I do drills every day. I stopped my speaking drills for about a week, and I tried speaking, and I was stuttering a little bit. I've always had an issue with slight stuttering, because when I get very tired, my tongue as a muscle, it gets lazy. So you have to try a little bit harder to articulate so you don't skip over your words, you don't cross over words and stutter and slip up. So bottom line, we separated these people into 3 groups, the business pages and everything else, the guys and the girls, and we dropped from like 950 people that I was originally following to about 150. I'm going to check that right now, because number of followers doesn't concern me. It's about the quality of people that you're following. 193. Fact check myself. And am I saying that, I like these people? Yeah, I enjoy their content and whatnot. But what I don't enjoy are the other people who think that, what they're doing is very cool and whatnot. And at the end of the day, anyone can like my story. Anybody can unfollow me. It's not going to hurt my feelings, because I already know that is your personal opinion. Your personal opinion, you are entitled to. This is a country where we have free speech. And I appreciate opposing viewpoints. I appreciate criticism, especially constructive criticism. And hopefully a lot of people can take this in a very good light, being that no one is perfect, and that the fact that I follow less than 200 people with a, 4,000 plus following is not narcissistic, like, oh, I'm better than you are. I just simply don't follow people that I don't align my values with, I don't enjoy being around with, or I just don't feel like is good for me to be around with, because those people are constantly looking for social validation, if that makes sense. And I've definitely seen a lot of growth in myself after doing a lot of this, and it's kind of like what we call cleaning out house. And you realize sometimes all it takes is removing one person from your life, and you realize that person was unknowingly, like maybe they were intentionally trying to hold you back, but they were unknowingly, like their presence was actually suppressing you. And once you're out of like your radius, as like, imagine like you're an atom, right? If you remember science correctly, there's like electrons and there's atoms and stuff. Once you're like out as an outlier, like on the outer boundaries, you're chilling, right? This is your own space. You can function how you want without, fear of criticism. Well, one of the things is that we have to live with criticism every single day. And social media magnifies criticism, clearly. A lot of people don't like it, so they hope that they'll get more positive comments than negative ones. I know girls who have literally cried when people have questioned them on their Instagram posts or wrote negative things. I'm like, why would you cry about someone who wrote something behind a keyboard or, from their phone? It makes no sense. You can write anything you want, you can hurt anyone's feelings, but you can't let that sort of negativity get to you. It's pretty simple. But some people are more emotional than others, and that's fine. Maybe social media isn't for you. Maybe you need to take a break, delete the app from your phone, go on there once a week. But some people need to be on there every single day because they need to be what we call in the know. And they need to be looking at everyone's story, staying up to date, up to date, up to date. It's like a stock trader. When he looks at like the news list and everything's just coming in constantly, like, oh, this just happened in New York, or rates just rose, or this, like, they're constantly being up to date. They're in the know. And then when you're not in the know, you basically lose touch with like reality in a sense, because a lot of people think like, oh, this guy is just not really in tune anymore. We don't really want to talk to him because he doesn't really care. He's not one of us, so you're kind of discarded as an idea or as a person. And that's fine. I did that too about a year and a half ago. I wrote on one of my Instagram posts, like, I'm going dark. And a lot of people were like very puzzled, like, what do you mean by that? Because I knew that social media was like a very poisoning thing if you let it get too much into your mind and you scroll too much. And if you're on there for like 2 to 3 hours a day, that's definitely an issue that one might want to look into. As I said, I want to spend no time on social media for like the next 5 to 6 months. So I remember I went dark, and my best friends actually reached out to me through texts. Hey, I saw what you posted. I think that's really cool. I might try this too. I said, cool, man. You see how, feathers of the same flock rub off on you? And people like I'm very well acquainted with or good friends with, they started trying out the same exact thing. I don't know. Some people it worked, some people didn't. Not saying it has to work with all of your friends to be friends. Everyone has differentiating viewpoints. And so we all, go on different ways, but we all still keep in contact. And so I did this, and then I realized, like, when I came back on, I realized my engagement on social media was about like 80% less. And I think, when you go dark for that long, Instagram coins you as like inactive, and to me, likes aren't cash. Likes aren't like a true engagement of, how good your profile is. Like, okay, you might have less followers. People lose faith in you because nowadays you can do one thing and it could be automatically coining an assumption from somebody. And then it's not easy to it's actually very easy to change someone's mindset nowadays. You can post one thing, you could change their mentality against you, like, oh, I don't actually like this guy anymore because he just posted this. And just like that, you could lose an acquaintance or a follower. I'm not out there to keep every single follower. I'm out there to post a content that I thoroughly enjoy, because I believe that everyone is on their own personal journey. I know people who just post about fitness. I know people who just post about stocks and finance. I post everything. I'll post stocks and finance, me going to the shooting range, me reading books, posing pictures. I don't know, because I thoroughly enjoy it, because I have the freedom, the will, and the opportunity to post that. If anyone says I can't, then they can go kick rocks, because they clearly do not understand what freedom of speech and press is, to a certain degree. So when we look at like just the whole entire main idea here, knowing what your time is worth, knowing your worth as an individual, how we all grow as people. And I don't want it to sound like cliche or corny or trying to go philosophical route on you, but it's true though. If you cut out a lot of people, you will automatically, I guarantee you, start to see yourself grow, especially if those people you're cutting out aren't good for you. And another thing as well that I forgot to include, or I forgot to talk about, is that if you're trying to grow as a person and you have friends who are trying to tell you like, oh, you're going too fast, think of this. To me, this is a red flag from your friends. quote, like you're going too fast, or like you might burn yourself out, or be careful, you don't know the consequences, or like, slow down. Those, in my opinion, are probably not your friends because they're trying to slow you down because you're making them look bad by how much progress you're making. I've had friends tell me when I started excelling at my job within a year, like extremely fast, like, oh, slow down, you're going to burn yourself out. You got a ways to go here, this and that. And then I realized I was making them look bad because they weren't making the leaps and strides at their job. So when they saw me, they had to bring me down. They tried to bring me down to their level to make them feel better. And, when you excel that much, the higher you go, as I mentioned before with the pyramid, example, they stay on that little level while you excel to the next level. And you know what? Now you're just out of sight, out of their mind. And they're like, I don't want to deal with you anymore. You're making me look bad because I'm on the level previous. And in that manner, I'm not saying you have to cut that person out, but if they can't accept the fact that you're excelling extremely fast and you're doing it in an honest manner, an ethical manner, and a legal manner, then there's really no bad thing to say there, right? So all in all, right, you're just excelling as an individual and you just want to surround yourself with individuals, guys and girls, whoever, who are maybe not on the same exact path that you're on, but people that you can align certain viewpoints with, people who are just extremely driven, who have great personalities. That's a big one. Personas, charisma is an extremely valuable thing nowadays. A lot of people lack because a lot of people are just stuck behind a computer and they don't really know how to socialize. So if you find someone with charisma, personality, driven, discipline, which is hard to find nowadays, you have to look in the right places. But if you find those people, I would highly encourage you, I won't tell you, but I'll highly encourage you and recommend you keep those people in your corner because they will most likely be there for you in your corner in times of need or distress. I'm not saying people who work with you, but people who might just be very well acquainted with you. And in the end, those similar mindsets just conjoin into a very positive flock of birds, if that makes sense. And that's the whole point of this podcast. So other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. I really hope you guys took some value from this because this is something that I've really been thinking about a lot lately. And it's no accident where you cut out 90%. Actually, that's a complete lie. When you cut out like 95% of people that you're acquainted with at one time, people you just don't think are going to help you grow. And unless they prove you wrong, that's one thing. But if you cut out that amount of people and then all of a sudden you see yourself excel the way you do right after that time frame within like 6 months, to me, that's not a mistake. It's not by accident. It's literally fate. It's bound to happen. So other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. Looking forward to talking to you guys again. As always, thanks for listening and take care.